defend the men who make amends when the enemy's friends. Power to the pretend. Alrighty. Oh fuck! It's been so long I forgot how to turn this off. All right, there we go. No fade out today. I'm back in the shack again. I'm back making videos here on the Voluntary Virtues Network. And let me just tell you, during the break, I've done a lot of thinking about what to make videos about, who maybe to debunk a show that they're not really educated, I guess you could say. And I kind of got to thinking, like back in the day, not back in the day, just like a month ago. I was making videos debunking like Stefan Molyneux, Russell Brand, just kind of criticizing them for their foolish ideals. And you know what? It got me thinking, like, that's kind of like the rookie trying to go straight up to WrestleMania, like right off the bat. I mean, I need to start at Ring of Honor before I can, move my way up to WrestleMania. So who is on the Ring of Honor level that's lower than anything else? Who's someone who has said so many stupid things and people have made comments to, but somehow he still keeps on making videos? Oh yeah, Jason Unruhe. I'm sorry if I need to say this correctly. Jason Unruhe. I had to get that out of the way. He's probably going to accuse me of being some infantile bullshit or something like that, quoting a murderer from Soviet Russia. But anyways, there actually are some key criticisms to be had with the guy. He doesn't really seem to have a fair idea of anarchism at all, or at least modern anarchism. As for anarcho-communism, he seems to have a basic understanding, but only enough to, like, he doesn't even really get it. Like, there's no other way. All right, let's just jump right in here. So I think I should start off by stating my past as somewhat of a leftist. Now I'm more of an agorist, as you can see by the logo down there in the corner. Freaking Google. But it wasn't always that way. When I was very young, I was groomed Republican. A lot of my family's in the Republican Party. And eventually I left that when I started to read George Orwell. And of course, he won me over to democratic socialism, or Trotskyism. And I say I was a Trotskyist because I only like Trotsky because of Orwell. I never actually read any of his things, so I can't defend him in any of his regards to writing. But to move on, eventually it became very hard to run out of excuses, basically, on why we needed a centralized democratic power presiding over all of this. And so I eventually moved on to social anarchism, which also still was very helpful, but it didn't really fulfill that longing for individualism that I was seeking in a philosophy at the time. So I eventually found myself being more of a radical minarchist liberal, but even then, liberalism never really filled that void. Like a lot of ANCOMs will criticize ANCOPs by saying that they're just radical liberals, but for me, the only liberal that ever came close to actually satisfying my longing for a sort of philosophy of individualism was maybe Hayek. And of course, after that, I eventually found myself reading Rothbard, who while does have some good theories out there, is somewhat of an asshole. But I'm not going to go into that, and I'll explain. And I'm eventually going to get to why Jason Unruhe clearly does not understand anarcho-capitalism, anarchism without adjectives. I mean, he just, the guy clearly doesn't have a modern grasp on anarchist thought, which we'll go into. So as I said before, it all really started with, and then eventually from ANCAP to agorist or mutualist, if you want to say it like that too. So it all started with Orwell, and eventually I got to reading some of his, aside from 1984 and Animal Farm, which were the two core essentials that I think they were the first ones I really read. Eventually I got to reading George Orwell's other work, Hommage to Catalonia, which was his story about going and fighting in the Spanish Revolution for the PUM, the Party of Unified Marxists. of him refuting Red and Black Revolutionary, who, granted, I don't always agree on everything with, but let's face it, I would take his revolution any day over Jason Unruhe's. But anyway, in that video, he says that anarchism has never existed in any sort of stable form. And I think Homage to Catalonia is a good example on how it has existed. And as Orwell points out several times throughout the novel, if he had gone back from the beginning all over again, he wouldn't have joined the POUM. He would have joined the Party of Unified Marxists. He would have joined the CNT or the Phi. His words exactly: if I had known the situation better prior, I would have joined the anarchists. And it's funny looking at the situation in Catalonia, because eventually Stalin's men and the Republicans ended up suppressing the POUM, the Party of Unified Marxists, the CNT, and the Phi. And it's while this sort of revolution within a revolution was happening that just kind of allowed Franco and his fascists to come in and just ravage the place. So that's just one thing I want to point out, that these sort of Stalinist communists, they were the ones who killed the opportunity of this real revolution from happening. And the implications that could have had on World War II, there's a lot of factors that play into the Spanish Revolution that many don't take into account. But moving on, there's a lot of other anarchist regions that one can draw from history to really show that that anarchy has happened. And I'm going to try and pronounce this right, since you have so many videos on North Korea, which I'll eventually get to in time, because let's face it, after spending a week watching Jason Unruhe's videos, I have enough stuff to debunk for months. But first off, there's this Shinmin Autonomous Region. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I probably did not. And there's not much info I could find on this, but I'll definitely have to come back to it later. But it was basically the anarchist movements of that came in Korea, basically. And what else? Well, there's also Free Territory Ukraine too, which I wouldn't call it the ideal anarchist state, but it's still another story to be drawn from, because what happened there, we saw very similar things to Catalonia. The communists eventually just put them all down. Many under Trotsky, Lenin, and Stalin's command, they were all put down in that region, massacred. It's like, hey, buddy, we just had this revolution. Come on, we're going to take you out back. But and even if we wanted to look at anarchism on a local autonomous basis, there are way too many local anarchist communes, I guess you could say, that have existed and still exist to this day. To name one that I am very familiar with, because I have friends who live near this place, is Christiania, Denmark. That's a fairly anarchist place, and it seems like whenever bad things happen there, it's always because of the state. Like, most of the problems that they face today are mainly because of the state coming in and trying to force people to do things. And man, what other? There's so many different anarchist communes to pick from, and I guess the only other one I'll mention is New Hampshire, because I see there's potential in there. More and more people are going there. There's potential of it becoming an anarchist state. But if we want to go deeper, we could even look at Provo and the anarchist revolts of Amsterdam, which Justin Judik and Mark Korsky, they're going to be having a film come out soon about, so we'll have more on that in time. And hopefully I'll have them here on the show, by the way. But yeah, so basically anarchism has existed before, and anarchism has never really led to the death of itself. The state has always led to the death of anarchy, it seems like. I mean, really, it took the combined force of the Stalinists and the Republicans and the fascists in Spain just to bring down the CNT, the Phi, and the POUM. It took the combined force of them both. And while we're on the subject of the Spanish Civil War, I might as well bring this up too. In the end of his video, Unruhe says something as to Noam Chomsky that he supports Obama, and I'm not a Noam Chomsky guy by any chance. I genuinely will be nicer with him, mainly because I agree with him more than I disagree on. So I won't like actively try to go after the guy. But I know for a fact that Noam Chomsky never supported Obama. As a matter of fact, he was very avid. I remember back in during 2008, during all that time, I remember seeing these videos of him saying that liberals were disillusioned with Obama and whatnot. So I don't know where you're getting this Noam Chomsky supports Obama thing. But then again, this is Jason Unruhe. Just like my title of this video, it's not anything that he says isn't based in facts at all. It's just something to say. All right, moving on. Another problem that I've noticed with Unruhe, which I should just bring up right now, is that he conflates things. And, you know, he complained about anarchists conflating classes with the state, which technically the state protects classes, so the elite classes. So I don't know how Jason Unruhe isn't able to connect those two dots, but moving on. More particularly, one that I noticed is he tends to conflate fascism and capitalism. And then I don't really consider myself a capitalist, mainly because the words become so dirty. I'd rather call myself an agorist or a free market anarchist. But fascism is a merger of the state and corporate power, and that's not me saying that's Mussolini saying that. And you know, the funny thing is, you can go to a fascist corner of the web. Go to Stormfront right now, Jason Unruhe, and go make a fake account and try and advocate capitalism or free markets to them. Watch what happens. They don't like that shit. And it makes no sense because capitalism is pure human interaction. It's just free trade. Fascism, there's still that element of the state regulating things. So I don't know how you were able to conflate these two. It really makes no sense. And that leads me to another thing too, is him conflating imperialism and capitalism as well. Imperialism I have much more experience with after doing some projects in high school on it and looking into several different things. And what it boils down to is Jason Unruhe can't really seem to get the difference that, well, capitalism, let's use an example here. Capitalism is a bunch of guys pulling up on a ship to a foreign land, meeting the indigenous people, and trading fairly so that everyone in the trade benefits, whether it be the natives or the people on the ship. Everyone benefits. Everyone gets something good in the end. Imperialism requires guns being pointed at the natives and pretty much screwing them over, giving them less while the people on the ship get more. It's an unfair system that's stacked against one party. So really, to say that it and capitalism are the same thing, it makes no sense. Now, in the different types of capitalism out there, the type that most of the people on this network seem to advocate is more laissez-faire capitalism. And you know, I feel now I'm starting to get into his video where he talks about how ANCAPs are thieves. So how do we start this out? Well, first off, the anarchists he quotes in the video, Peter Kropotkin and whatnot, most of those aren't really considered to be anarchist philosopher roots in anarcho-capitalism. I mean, if anything, what you'll find more when you look into anarcho-capitalism is the philosophy is rooted in the works of Lysander Spooner and Benjamin Tucker, which I know that they are both critical of certain brands of capitalism as well, but at least there's still an ideal, there's still somewhat of a theme of mutualism in there to be taken from. And that was another thing. You quoted Proudhon, too, or Proudhon. I cannot pronounce his name. My apologies to any of the mutualists out there who are going to go crazy. But quoting him kind of makes no sense because he believed in a balance between markets and the powers of the workers. So, and even in that quote you show, he talks about capital and the state. ANCAPs don't believe in capitalism with the state. So right away, that quote that you pulled makes no sense and doesn't really refute ANCAPs. It just kind of shows that that people like you don't really get the philosophy that's behind it. But more specifically, the type of capitalism that ANCAPs tend to advocate is laissez-faire capitalism, as I was saying before. And this is basically the idea of just letting people do their own things as long as no one's really using force. And it's very different than the other types of capitalism that exist out there. The capitalism, for instance, that I'm sure the Maoist rebel is referring to is almost always this type of state capitalism, which many capitalists won't try and refer to capitalism at all. It still technically is a form of capitalism. So I don't know why so many want to say, oh, it's not capitalism, because there still is capitalistic flares in there, but it's not laissez-faire capitalism is the thing. And that's mainly what ANCAPs are advocating, laissez-faire capitalism. If anything, I think that anarcho-capitalism is just another form of market anarchism, basically. It's another, that most ANCAPs tend to look at the word capitalism and free market as both things that are interchangeable. And to build off of this, while I was watching this, I just kind of was thinking, like, does Jason Unruhe have any sort of understanding of this sort of the modern anarchist scene, I guess you could say? Because like modern anarchism, when you go and you talk to people, it's more like an anarchism without adjectives, I guess you could say. Like you have ANCAPs, you have ANCOMs, obviously, but then again, you also have mutualists. You have anarcho-pacifists, you have anarcho-syndicalists. Like, it's very varying, and it varies a lot, basically. And it basically starts like this, the way a lot of modern anarchists will look at it. It starts with the individual saying that he wants no rulers from the state, and then going on to pursue, basically take it from there. It starts with no rulers, basically. And I don't know what else to say from there. But Jason Unruhe, I guess okay, I think I have one final thing to say. Here's my hypothetical question, basically, to Unruhe. If he does somehow watch this whole video, and he's probably going to make some horrible response saying that I'm a bourgeois individualist and that everything I referenced was just propaganda by the West or some bullshit. But here's my basic hypothetical. Let's say the communist revolution happens, his version of it. Because, you know, every version of the communist revolution of different communists I talk to seems to be different. But let's say this happens. What happens when your communist state reaches a region of people who will say something like, we don't want to be in your commune, we don't want to join your communist society, we've discovered something like agorism or mutualism, and we'd like to live under a society like that instead. Like, feel free to do your own thing, we just would like to do ours as well. What are you going to do? Are you going to initiate force onto these people and force them to join your collective? Because at that point, you're no better than the fascists or the imperialists. Which, by the way, those are two different things as well. But you're no better than any of it. I don't know how you can support something like Maoism that has just failed tremendously, or any sort of communistic system that has just failed tremendously. And I've heard the excuses from people before trying to defend these sort of systems, saying that North Korea isn't a real system, isn't real communism, or Mao's China wasn't real communism. Because yeah, they were real communism. They just all fail tremendously. Like, Mao put a lot of the workers in charge, and what you saw was a drop in productivity with the workers, drastically. All right, got a little bit off where I was going there on the end, but anyways, I hope anyone who's watched this has enjoyed my new video here on the network. I hope to be doing a lot more soon, and hopefully I'll be able to edit soon here too. I decided to start doing the ads at the end now, so if you want to help out this show at all, please go to Distance Arts on Facebook, check out some of our space art, maybe buy some. I also have some Oregon too that I could probably sell, so I'll probably put some pictures of that up sooner than later as well. Please go check out Wind Patrol. Wind Patrol is going to be getting bigger soon. They're going to actually be sponsoring my other sponsor, which I'm about to anarchist world here on the Voluntary Virtues Network, trying to remain optimistic in the age of imperialism.